Hello, and once again, welcome to another episode of Out of Time Reviews, a show that looks at all the latest things to hit cinemas and streaming, and a heavily belated episode at that. I'm Andrew Parker, senior writer and film critic for thegate.ca, back after several weeks of extreme busyness and a lot of up and down health. In addition to everything that I had normally going on, I somehow managed to get sick twice in the span of 3 weeks, and the second time was so much worse than the first, and it compounded a lot of other health issues that I have going on at the moment, and it just took me out. This episode is going to focus on 5 new movies that came out this week, but I have a bunch more stuff in the pipeline. So you can expect a few bonus or lost episodes that will cover things I saw before I felt under the weather or workload got the best of me. So stay tuned for those. Hopefully those will go up over the course of the next week or so. There's also a few new interviews up on the channel in the interim that you might have noticed, including one with the cast of the BritBox series The Other Bennett Sister, at the place of Ghost filmmaker Brenton Hannum stopped by, our hero Balthazar director Oscar Boyson, best-selling author Shelby Van Pelt talks about the Netflix adaptation of her book Remarkably Bright Creatures, multi-hyphenate talent and activist Boots Riley talks about his latest film I Love Boosters. You can check all of that out now. If you haven't already, there's some great stuff in there. And like I said, keep an eye out for a whole backlog of stuff that I'll be rolling out slowly but surely as things start to get back on track. For this week, we're going to take a look at Star Wars, The Mandalorian and Grogu, a film that I don't think needs much of an introduction. The aforementioned I Love Boosters, a chaotic comedic critique of capitalism. The road trip thriller Passenger, where a couple of Gen Z van lifers are stalked by a demonic highwayman. Saccharine, an Australian-produced horror thriller where a young woman's weight loss goals come at a high price, and closing things out, a peek inside John Krasinski's latest outing as a highly capable CIA analyst in Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan Ghost War. Like, share, and subscribe if you feel so inclined. Let's get to talking about some movies.
Grogu, I need you to go to the control panel. Remember the buttons I told you never to touch? I'm gonna need you to touch them. Look for the ignition relay cutoff. It's next to the fuel differential readout, which is between the pump compression gauge and the primary reserve No, don't touch the missile battery switch. That's why there's a safety guard on it. Do you see the fuel readout display? Remember I showed you that one? It's on the other side of the manual control surface calibration.
I don't think he knows what he's doing.
Director and co-writer Jon Favreau guides the first big screen outing for streaming Star Wars standouts The Mandalorian and Grogu with generally the same amount of success that the filmmaker had with the show, where he's primarily working as a creator and writer. To say that Star Wars The Mandalorian and Grogu maintains the charm, excitement, and high production value as the series is more of a testament to the show's craftsmanship than it is this slightly beefed-up project. But as a simple summer movie thrill ride, Favreau and company get the job done. Not much knowledge of the series beyond a passing familiarity that these characters exist is necessary to enjoy this, but I'm sure it doesn't hurt. The Mandalorian and Grogu gets off to a quick start following an impressive prelude action sequence that finds our heroes making a treacherous getaway. The Mandalorian, played by Pedro Pascal, and his helpful sidekick Grogu, who, I have to stress, is just a little guy, are continuing their quest to collect bounties on the heads of Imperial warlords that have gone into hiding with hopes of resurrecting the Empire. Mando's New Republic contact, played by Sigourney Weaver, tasks the duo with finding a high-level target that no one has ever laid eyes on before. To procure enough information to make this happen, Mando has to play nice with the organized crime family the Hutts and track down their lost nephew Rota, voiced by Jeremy Allen White. But when they find Rota, they discover that he's perfectly happy where his life is, and he has no intention of returning to the cousins that probably intend to kill him. The Mandalorian and Grogu isn't made for the same types of Star Wars fans that found Andor such an intelligent blast of fresh air. This is more in line with the kind of one-off space westerns that made franchise creator George Lucas want to make Star Wars in the first place. It's tied to a larger machine through its characters, but it's still largely unbothered with creating anything deeply meaningful. Its intentions are to be a popcorn movie that adults and kids could watch together once the weather turns warmer, and when looked at through those metrics, The Mandalorian and Grogu is a fun time at the movies. Much like the equally divisive Han Solo movie from a few years back, this one is the kind of exercise where I had fun in the moment, but I'm not likely to think about this one too much in the future. The visual detail is nice, the creature designs are wondrous, and the tremendous score from Ludwig Göransson is one of the year's best. I think even those who don't love the film will have some affection for the score at the very least, unless of course they want another John Williams one, in which case they aren't going to get anything close to that. The pace is brisk, the set pieces are fun to watch, and the bonding that occurs between the three primary characters is heartfelt, albeit sometimes cartoonish and overly earnest. But on the downside, this isn't the kind of film one watches if they're interested in performance. Everyone is hiding behind masks or visual effects, and no one is ever able to fully overcome the restrictions placed on their characters. The only people who are visible for most of their roles in the film are the film's villain, who's easy to suss out, and Weaver, who could do this sort of thing without even having to stand up, and she'd still seem credible. The bigger issue here is that despite the IMAX and premium format glow-up Favreau gives the characters, The Mandalorian and Grogu will never beat the allegations that this is just 2 episodes of the show that have been stitched together in the middle. There comes a distinct point where it feels like everything is wrapped up nicely and neatly, and almost like all of this was too easy. But then another plotline kicks in, one that's more heavy on the Grogu antics than the first half was. Neither half is badly done, but there's a pronounced sense that this was conceived as something else entirely before the decision was made to turn it into a film. That leaves somewhat of a sour taste for me, but not enough to not recommend Star Wars: The Mandalorian and Grogu. It won't please those who take their Star Wars lore very seriously or prefer something with more meat on its bones, but as a piece of entertainment, I can't say I was bored or aggravated by anything other than the mid-movie track switch. On the whole, I can comfortably give The Mandalorian and Grogu a 6 out of 10. I had fun in the moment, but I don't know if I would watch it again unless I absolutely had to.
Get your camera out. Let's go live.
You know the egregious theft that's been happening at my stores. The booster and take my clothes. Because they're low-class urban bitches.
Chrissy Smith knows we exist.
I call it triple F. Fashion, forward, philanthropy. I know how to spell philanthropy. Branding, though.
Corvette, you're a raw-ass, make-it-happen hustler.
Give it to me. It's mine anyway.
Writer-director Boots Riley's follow-up to his socially conscious comedic freakout Sorry to Bother You is the equally out there but slightly sunnier I Love Boosters, an anarchic comedy with boundless energy, big ideas, and a lot on its mind. Keke Palmer stars as Corvette, a budding fashion designer who barely makes a living by shoplifting high-fashion clothes and accessories from bougie shops. Flanked by her fellow boosters in the Velvet Gang, Sade, played by Naomi Ackie, and Mariah, played by Taylor Page, Corvette helps those less fortunate and wealthy stay fly. Their exploits make them a major thorn in the side of big-time designer Christine Smith, played by Demi Moore, a successful hack who has made untold billions off of monochromatic color schemes, elitism, and stolen designs. Initially one of Corvette's idols, the booster becomes incensed when she discovers Christie has ripped off one of her ideas. With the help of her friends, a teleporting, toting, exploited worker from the company's Chinese production plant, played by Poppy Liu, and an aloof but highly intelligent union organizer, played by Isa Gonzalez, Corvette makes a play to ruin Christie's company once and for all. I Love Boosters is a film that takes big swing after big swing after big swing, unafraid of seeming addled, but always kept together by intricately woven, thought-out ideologies and a killer sense of humor. It's a colorful, free-thinking blend of old-school cartoons and postmodern surrealism, mixed in with some Karl Marx and bodily fluid gags. There's always so much happening in every moment of I Love Boosters that it can feel overwhelming, as Riley and his fully committed cast bounce back and forth between broad comedy and nuanced satire, sometimes across a single minute of story. It's an elevated heist movie at heart, a sprint in terms of pacing, and a doctoral-level thesis in its smartest and most subversive moments. It has a wide range of appeal for people who don't mind movies that have a bit of everything in them. As with the music produced by Riley over the past few decades as part of the coup, I Love Boosters boasts impassioned messages about the dark side of capitalism. While never judging everyday people for their need to have things that help them get through the day, Riley saves his scorn for the methods by which these things are produced, marketed, packaged, and foisted upon the public. One of the main targets for Riley here is the way that workers, both in retail and manufacturing settings, are forced into falsely thinking that they're part of something. A pride for products and productivity is depressingly delivered by the smile by corporate overlords who insist that everyone that works at a company is somehow part of a bigger picture of profits. Those workers, especially those in the unsafe factories, will never see any of those profits, but they're made to think that a job well done is its own special reward. You should be happy for this opportunity and happy for your unseen boss's good fortunes. That through line comes through the strongest here, but sometimes it fights to compete with the occasional tangents Riley likes to follow for a few patches of the film. I Love Boosters isn't afraid to look silly, and sometimes even a bit behind the times. The gags in some parts are refreshingly old school in terms of wordplay and physical comedy and practical effects, and the cast, especially Palmer and Page, are highly adept at matching Riley's unique flows. There's innovation throughout I Love Boosters, but Riley also loves the simple joys of miniatures, stop-motion animation, and even creature design via one of the craziest and most horrific sex gags ever committed to film. This is first-rate, confident filmmaking that owns its decisions as much as it owns its own messaging. Palmer anchors the film in the lead, further showing just how bright of a star she is, but there's an embarrassment of riches in the film's supporting cast, especially with Moore's button-pressing troll, Lakeith Stanfield as a model brimming with such sexual intensity that he makes the camera shake whenever he arrives on screen, Will Poulter as a catty exploitative store manager, and Don Cheadle as a pyramid scheme-running huckster who hides his misdeeds under the guise of quote-unquote community love. Everyone in I Love Boosters looks like they're having the time of their lives playing around in Riley's sandbox, and that esprit de corps is infectious. The film urges people to seek revenge against unfairly stacked systems of economic power by any means necessary, but it also urges them to find creative ways of doing so. As much as the film has a point that it wants to make, I Love Boosters is also an inspiring plea for people to keep their creative spark alive at a time when the world is wasting away. I Love Boosters is going to get an 8 out of 10 from me.
Make it quick.
Dude, give me 1 minute.
Yo! Daniel?
On a dark wooded road, one might find the demon known as the Passenger. And just like the lore at the heart of director Andre Overdahl's latest suggests you should do, you can just keep driving past this one. A limp derivative bit of nonsense, Passenger is a riff on the kind of thing Jeepers Creepers did, but not any better or worse, and at the very least this isn't directed by someone inherently problematic. It's a film that just kind of sits there for its entire running time, dutifully moving from one cliched scenario to the next until it's time to just wrap things up. Jacob Scipio and Lou Yobel star as Tyler and Maddie, a couple in a committed relationship that decides to leave their life in New York City behind for a new one out on the open road. Tyler has gone all in on the idea of living a nomadic life out of the back of a converted van, but Maddie seems less convinced. 6 weeks into their trip, and cracks start to show in their close quarters relationship, but that's soon to be the least of their problems. One night, while driving down a secluded woodland road, they witness an accident that leaves a driver dead under mysterious circumstances. At the site of the crash, their vehicle is marked with claw-like scratches, a sign that they're being followed by a devious entity that won't stop until they're dead, and the cycle begins anew with another unlucky traveler. Passenger is a film with some good moments, but a lot of monotony between those beats and a maddeningly loose sense of logic. A lack of logic hasn't stopped slashes before, but Passenger has so much downtime along its route that it's hard not to think about all of its downsides. It's never clear if the passenger itself, played by Joseph Lopez, is a ghoul, ghost, demon, or monster made flesh. It can pop out of nowhere like Jason Voorhees, but also can't pass through walls, doors, or windshields without making a huge racket. It's never clear if he can possess people or mess with their minds, and he just spends more time actively annoying his prey instead of getting around to killing them. And as such, the villain at the heart of the limp story provided by the screenwriters feels stock and uninspired. There feels like no less than a dozen ways this thing could be defeated, tricked, or forgotten about, and if you start thinking about those things, Passenger will crumble into a pile of dust. Visually, there's not much to look at here, outside of a creative moment where a projector is used as an impromptu flashlight, and the cleverly mounted climactic showdown in the desert between the heroes and the villain. Everything is static, and so too are the performances. It's a shame because Overdahl previously made films like Troll Hunter, The Autopsy of Jane Doe, and Last Voyage of the Demeter, all of which have a certain degree of style and vibes. But no one can inject anything into this material, not even veteran actor Melissa Leo as the sage old-timer who tries to teach Tyler and Maddie about their plight and the benefits of knowing the hobo code of the road. Not much happens during the first hour of Passengers outside of weak stock relationship drama and a handful of jump scares delivered without much suspense or atmosphere. This is pure C-grade horror all the way, but I can see Passenger working for a certain section of genre buffs. If you feel chills while driving at night or walking alone to your car across a seemingly empty parking lot, this might make the spine tingle a bit. But then again, you'll have to overlook a lot of obvious shortcomings for any of that to fully take root. This one's a 3 out of 10. Not the worst, but the boredom factor is pretty high. With so many better horror movie options out there at the moment, it's hard to justify taking a road trip to see this.
Thinking of signing up to do this thing.
What thing?
Oh, just a gym program thing.
The reason why you can't lose the weight is because you can't stop.
These generous donors will be your first patients.
So mostly calcium phosphate.
What?
Human ash.
A much better bang for your scary movie buck is writer-director Natalie Erica James's queer psychological body horror Saccharine, a goopy, gory, unsettling tale of someone's weight loss goals going off the rails. Midori Francis stars as Hannah, a med school student struggling with binge eating and body image issues. She desperately wants to impress her crush Alanya, played by Madeline Madden, a charming student in the health sciences department that works the counter at the school gymnasium. Having had little luck with traditional weight loss methods, even though she's clearly a healthy person, Hannah discovers a new option when she runs into a former high school classmate at a pub, played by Annie Shapiro, a once plus-sized girl who has had a major glow-up. Apparently, there's a mysterious, non-regulated, and highly expensive black market pill that can make users shed pounds like crazy, and they can still eat and drink whatever they want. After Hannah pops a gifted pill and sees that it works, she analyzes it to see what's inside, and see if she can recreate it in the med school labs to save a lot of money that she doesn't have. It turns out the pills, known as Greys, are made from the ashes of human bones. Although she's shocked at first, Hannah still can't deny the results, and it just so happens that she's at a point in her studies where she's working with human cadavers. Hannah starts shedding the pounds at an alarming rate and continues gorging herself with large amounts of the junk food she loves so dearly. But she's also being plagued by the ghost of the dead person whose bones she's been incinerating and ingesting, a very large woman who keeps getting bigger and forces Hannah to keep eating insane amounts of food to keep the ghost's violent tendencies at bay. There is a bravery to what James is trying to do amid all the shock value on display throughout Saccharine. A great deal of the bone-crunching, food-chomping, fluid-oozing images in Saccharine are meant to disgust and provoke, but the film remains resolutely empathetic towards its deeply flawed protagonist. As James further explores the underlying reasons for Hannah's neuroses and compulsions, Saccharine becomes the kind of horror thriller that's as movingly sad as it is gory and disgusting. There is a dash of cruelty to some of the scenarios depicted in Saccharine that border on being fatphobic, but there's always something else happening below the surface of James's material to offset that kind of unease. The casting of the very talented Danielle MacDonald as Hannah's best friend and voice of reason probably works best in this respect, as it depicts a plus-sized person as being the smartest and least screwed up person in the room. And for her part in the lead, Frances gives her all to a role that's physically and emotionally draining. She follows her director into dark places without question or hesitation. Saccharine isn't a perfect film, but it's good enough to recommend. It gets off to such a fast start that one initially wonders how it's going to end up filling a nearly 2-hour running time, and there are some story elements that are derivative of other notable body image films and works, like The Substance, Stephen King's Thinner, and even a bit of Darren Aronofsky's The Whale. Not all of Saccharine is original or even all that subtle, but it moves with conviction and is driven by a strong visual aesthetic and committed performances. This one is getting a 6 out of 10 from me.
So you leave the CIA, you get yourself a nice civilian job.
Are you kidding me?
It's good to see you.
Whatever it is, I'm not doing it.
I just need you to meet a guy.
No. God, I missed this. Missed what? Being out in the field. Don't look directly at me. Sorry. Might as well just touch your earpiece.
Your friend sent you because he's scared. He's right to be.
John Krasinski is back as Tom Clancy's intelligent and crafty government snoop in Jack Ryan Ghost War, an offshoot of the Star's successful Prime Video series that doesn't quite impress but doesn't embarrass itself either. Deputy CIA Director James Greer, played once again by Wendell Pierce, tracks down Jack Ryan and begs him to come back into the fold for one more assignment. Ryan, who's enjoying life as a civilian, is tasked with meeting a guy to do a pickup, but Jack knows very well that these things are never as simple as meeting a guy and doing a pickup. Partnered with former station chief turned private security guru Mike November, played by Michael Kelly, the duo head to Dubai to get a thing from some dude. Turns out they've been tasked with a cleanup mission for Greer to retake information tied to Starling, a black ops program started post 9/11 that acted well outside the boundaries of established law. They're not alone in wanting that data, as an MI6 agent, played by Sienna Miller, and a former high-ranking Starling contractor turned international terrorist, played by Max Beasley, are willing to stop at nothing for control. I haven't seen much of the Jack Ryan series, but thankfully that isn't much of a prerequisite for the film. Much like The Mandalorian and Grogu, which we talked about before, all you need to know is that this is a character that has been around for a bit. You don't even need to know that Jack Ryan's been played previously by Alec Baldwin, Harrison Ford, Ben Affleck, and Chris Pine in movies before this. You need to know almost nothing in order to dive into this story, provided by Krasinski and House of Dynamite writer Noah Oppenheimer, and directed by regular series episode helmer Andrew Bernstein. Will Ghost War please fans of the show? I have no idea, but I expect not, because the material is as thin as a receipt. This movie is a simplistic, quick-footed Mission Impossible riff on a lower budget and with less ambitions of grandeur. I wasn't bored by any of this because it's nothing if not energetic. It's a 105-minute run-and-gun spy movie that's trying to make Jack Ryan look like the American equivalent of James Bond. The action sequences are fun, but they suffer a bit from sometimes overly frantic editing. The actors are all physically capable, charming, capable of holding their own during the movie's many moments where they have to shout their beliefs at each other. And Jack hurriedly clacks away on keyboards and clicks a mouse. Then there are more chases and shootouts, and someone will turn out to be a mole, and everything gets resolved so most of the characters can move on to fight another day. None of this matters very much, and the impact is short-lived. I wouldn't say I was bored while watching Jack Ryan Ghost War, but there was nothing inspiring or rousing about it. As someone who doesn't follow the show very closely, I guess I preferred this to something with a bunch of dense lore that I wouldn't be able to follow, but there's also nothing to take the place of that missing depth. It's a passive movie that plays more like a commercial advertising the series that spawned it instead of a natural continuation of its storylines. It gets points for being brief and swift, and Pierce puts in a genuinely great performance as the conflicted CIA honcho, but it's hardly appointment viewing. This one is getting a 5 out of 10 from me. It's a near miss. But what did you think of this week's new releases, or even some of the ones I missed from the past few weeks? Leave a comment below and come back soon as I try my very best to play catch up, and next week come back for another batch of new release reviews, hopefully on time. Until next time, take care of yourselves, stay healthy, and have a great week.